I want to take you straight to video that we are just getting from Utuado, Puerto Rico. It is in the center part of the island, and I just spoke to a gentleman. His name is Leomar Rodriguez, and he shot this video that we're matter of minutes. He saw that the water was rising and it completely took the bridge out in that area. Again, this is in the interior part of the island. This was an area that was one of the worst hit nearly 5 years ago to the day in the interior part of the island. So take note of the timing here, because that is a critical part of this story too. Not only is this island dealing with an island-wide power outage, flash flooding, possible mudslides. Rescue teams are already at work as Fiona has already made landfall, but they're also doing this at a time where this is when Hurricane Maria struck nearly 5 years ago, and they've been constantly dealing with power outages. So earlier today, I went into Caguas, which is about 30 minutes south of San Juan, and I spoke to a family that lost power at 8 o'clock this morning before things really started to pick up. And they were quick to say, look, after Maria, we were without power for a year, and here we go again. The trauma lingers. Let me go ahead and let you listen to that exchange, but I will let you know the video is a little dark because, well, there wasn't power. She was a year without power after Hurricane Maria. ¿Y tú piensas en eso cuando la lluvia baja hacia ahora? I'm asking her if that's what she thinks about when the rain comes.
Siempre que hay lluvia de
She says, yeah.
siempre hay lluvia de 3 o 4 días, pues siempre pues estamos sin luz semana.
She says every single time that there's rain that comes down for 3 or 4 days, they go weeks without power. And again, remember, this is an island that not only dealt with Hurricane Maria on September 20th, 2017, they've also had earthquakes that have battered the southern part of the island, the same part of the island where Fiona is right now, causing rivers to swell, flooding, and we're only starting to see some of the major impacts being captured right now, Jim.
All right, Leila Santiago, thank you very much. Some very disturbing video there. Chad Myers, let me go to you on this. And I know you want to show us the speed and the direction of the storm and where it's heading. But that video that Leila was showing us just a few moments ago of that bridge getting washed out, if we could show it one more time. I mean, Chad, this is what you were mentioning this in the previous hour. The danger of flash flooding is so severe right now that scenes like this could be repeating themselves for hours now, for days potentially.
Absolutely, Jim. There are places in rivers that have river gauges that are now higher than during Maria. That's how much rainfall this storm is putting down. It is a slow, lumbering storm, 85-mile-per-hour winds with 105-mile-per-hour gusts, 100-mile-per-hour gusts. But it's just moisture surge that's coming off of the Gulf, coming off of the Caribbean Sea. And the rain just hasn't stopped. And there are spots now, I know that there are spots with 15 inches already on the ground. For a bit, the radar went out, the communications didn't work so well after about when the power outage happened, but we're not back now. So we can still see that the rain hasn't stopped. It's coming in the exact same places. Every single customer without power on the island. So pumps don't work, refrigerators don't work. 103-mile-per-hour wind gusts, as high as I've seen so far in Ponce. That is the area there that was hit with the northern part of the eye wall. And the eye wall is worse than the eye. Getting in the eye is okay because it's fairly calm. They just have to go through both eye walls to get there. So that's the problem. Ponce just never got any relief from that northern eye wall with the winds just blowing for hours and hours and hours. This is a flood maker. This is a flash flood maker. This is a mudslide maker. There are different things for different hurricanes. That's its problem. Our big problem is the flooding. Not so much the storm surge. We're about 1 to 3 feet. We can handle that along the beach, but not when you start putting that much water on top of hills. The 5 o'clock advisory just came in. Here it is. Now we are up by Wednesday afternoon to a 125-mile-per-hour storm. And I know it's not approaching the U.S., but the waves will, and the dangers of rip currents for next week will be significant all up and down the East Coast. Jim.
All right, Chad Myers, thanks for staying on top of it. As always, we appreciate it. Let's bring in the acting director of the National Hurricane Center, Jamie Rome. Jamie, we just saw some devastating video a few moments ago of this bridge getting washed away in Puerto Rico, and Chad Myers was talking about, that the flash flooding concerns are just going to be paramount over the next day or so. And while we always talk about how coasts are affected by these hurricanes, I suspect it's the interior of Puerto Rico where they're really going to have to keep an eye on things, and it could get quite dangerous. What do you have your eye on?
The footage that you opened up with that flash flooding and just how catastrophic it can unfold in just a few seconds is probably going to play itself out for the rest of the evening, and more scary, overnight. Once the sun comes down, then things are going to become even more treacherous for people to be out and about. Hopefully everyone is where they want to be, because with power outages, there'll be no lights. You won't be able to see anything. And that flooding could get worse in the overnight hours.
And Jamie, the National Hurricane Center just put out a statement saying the storm is causing, quote, catastrophic flooding. Can you put that into concrete terms for us?
Well, we're looking at storm total precipitation of over 2 feet. 2 feet of water falling can cause, and Chad alluded to it in the opening, we're seeing some of our gauges that measure the river stages come up at the pace I haven't seen in quite a while, if ever. And so it's just really, really, really flashy, which means that the water will rise in the order of minutes and hours and can just take you completely off guard.
And how long of a threat is this going to be for our fellow Americans there in Puerto Rico?
Unfortunately, it's going to linger well beyond once the center moves away from Puerto Rico overnight and until tomorrow. And you can see that here. You can just see all this just heavy rain and tropical moisture streaming to the east. So even as Fiona moves off in this direction overnight and tomorrow, you're still going to get the southerly flow and the potential for even more training rains to happen tomorrow.
All right, Jamie Rome in the National Hurricane Center, thank you very much. And I'm joined now by the former mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico, Carmen Yulín Cruz. Thank you so much for being with us. All of Puerto Rico lost power before Fiona could even make landfall. Luma Energy, we understand, says it could be days before this power is restored. What can you tell us? What does this mean for the people of Puerto Rico?
Well, first of all, Jim, we are seeing tragedy unraveling in front of our eyes again. And if things are not done in a different way, we're headed for the same results. I find myself now in the diaspora with my heart broken, with my family, my daughter, my parents in Puerto Rico, my father bedridden. And I can hear the pain and the desperation, and you can probably hear it in my voice. So here I go again, 4 years, 363 days later, to plead with the President of the United States and the Vice President. Action has to be directed at one thing, and it is to save lives. It has to be swift. It cannot be bureaucratically directed or driven. It has to be people-driven. It has to be robust. And it has to be laser-focused on three things. One, in my opinion, one is getting the electrical grid back on track. How can we do that? Well, there can be deployment from the Army right now as we speak, so that they can get there as soon as they can, with helicopters, with airplanes as soon as they can land. Two, the Jones Act can be repealed immediately, so that people from Panama and other nearing countries can come in and help the Puerto Rican people to just lift up the electrical grid. Number two, the health system in Puerto Rico, the hospital, especially the tertiary hospital, which is the Centro Médico in San Juan right now. Make sure that the generators are there, that dialysis centers are working. And number three, not allow this tragedy, which is unfolding, to be weaponized as it was in the past, but to use not only governmental entities, take the aid directly to the mayors, bypass the central government where things get into a bottleneck at some point, and use religious organizations and community organizations and non-governmental organizations. If these things are not done, we would have not learned anything from Maria, and we are looking at hundreds and, God forbid, thousands of lives again to be lost now on President Biden's watch.